I want you to imagine something for just a moment. Imagine waking up in the morning, the sun barely peeking through your curtains, the smell of coffee brewing in your kitchen. You stretch your arms, you feel the warmth of your blanket, and for just a split second, everything feels normal. Everything feels right with the world. Now imagine walking to your front door, opening it to greet the morning air, and seeing something that makes your blood run cold. Something that doesn't make sense. Something that feels like a nightmare you can't wake up from. That's exactly what happened to me on a Monday morning that I will never forget for as long as I live. My name is David, and I'm a simple man. I've lived on this piece of land for over 40 years. I raised my family here. I watched my children take their first steps in the living room. I celebrated birthdays and holidays and all the little moments that make life worth living within these walls. When my wife Margaret passed away 2 years ago, this house became more than just a structure made of wood and brick. It became my sanctuary. It became the only place where I could still feel her presence, where I could still smell her perfume in the hallway, where I could still hear her laughter echoing through the rooms. This land wasn't just dirt and grass to me. It was a lifetime of memories. It was the spot where Margaret and I planted our first garden together. It was the tree where our children hung a swing and spent countless afternoons playing. It was the view from our porch where we watched countless sunsets, holding hands, knowing that we had built something beautiful together. My son Michael knew all of this. He grew up on this land. He knew every inch of it, every secret spot, every memory that was etched into the soil. Yet, when Margaret passed away, something changed in him. It was like a switch had been flipped, and the son I raised, the boy I taught to ride a bike and throw a baseball, turned into someone I barely recognized. It started small at first. Little comments here and there about how the property was too much for me to handle alone, suggestions that maybe I should think about selling it. Nothing too aggressive, nothing that set off alarm bells in my head. I just figured he was worried about his old man, that he wanted to make sure I was okay living here by myself. But then the comments became more frequent, more pointed, and the offers started coming. You know, Dad, a developer approached me the other day. They're interested in this whole area. They'd pay good money for this land. I remember looking at him, trying to read his face, trying to understand where this was coming from. Michael, I'm not interested in selling. This is your mother's land. This is where she wanted to be. I'm not going anywhere. He didn't push back that day. He just nodded and changed the subject. But I could see something in his eyes. Something calculating. Something that made my father's intuition start whispering warnings in my ear. A few weeks later, he came back with a new proposal. This time, he wanted to buy the land himself. He said he wanted to keep it in the family, that he wanted to build a house here for his own family. It sounded reasonable on the surface. It sounded like something a loving son would want to do. But then he named his price. I almost choked on my coffee when I heard it. It was less than half of what the land was worth. It was insultingly low. It was the kind of offer you make when you're trying to take advantage of someone, not when you're trying to help them. Michael, I can't accept that. You know what this land is worth. You know I can't just give it away. He leaned forward in his chair, and for the first time, I saw something dark flash across his face. Dad, think about it. You're getting older. You can't maintain this place forever. Eventually, you're going to need help. Why not let me take it off your hands now while you can still enjoy the money? I shook my head. I don't need the money, son. I need this house. I need this land. It's all I have left of your mother. His jaw tightened. I could see the muscles in his neck tensing up. Mom is gone, Dad. She's been gone for 2 years. You need to move on. You need to think about the future. I am thinking about the future, I said firmly. And my future is right here in this house, on this land. I'm not selling, Michael. Not now, not ever. You need to accept that. He stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back so hard it nearly tipped over. Fine. Keep your precious land. But don't come crying to me when you can't take care of it anymore. Don't come to me when you're old and alone and nobody wants to help you. Those words cut deep. They were meant to hurt, and they did. But I held my ground. I watched him storm out of the house, slamming the door behind him, and I told myself that he was just upset, that he would come around, that this was just a phase. I was wrong. For the next few months, Michael barely spoke to me. He stopped coming by for Sunday dinners. He stopped answering my phone calls. When I'd leave him messages, he'd return them with short, clipped texts that felt more like business transactions than conversations between a father and son. I tried to reach out. I tried to understand what was going on in his head. I asked his wife, Jennifer, if everything was okay. She would just shrug and say he was stressed with work, that he'd come around eventually. But I could see the worry in her eyes. I could tell she knew something was wrong too. The isolation was the hardest part. After Margaret died, my son and his family were really all I had left. My daughter Sarah lived across the country with her husband and kids. We talked on the phone regularly, but I only saw her once or twice a year. So Michael was my connection to the world, my link to the family I had built. Now he was pulling away, and I felt like I was losing another piece of myself. I spent many nights sitting on the porch, looking out at the land that meant so much to me, wondering what I had done wrong. Was I being stubborn? Was I being unreasonable? Should I just give in and sell the land to keep the peace with my son? Every time I thought about it, I remembered Margaret's face when we first bought this property. I remembered the way she twirled around in the empty living room, her arms wide open, saying, "David, this is it. This is our home. This is where we're going to grow old together." I remembered the years of love we poured into this place, the family we built, the life we created. I couldn't let that go. I couldn't sell it for anything, no matter how much money was offered. I just never imagined that my own son would go to the lengths he did to try to take it from me. That Monday morning started like any other. The sun was rising over the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I made my coffee the same way I'd made it every morning for 40 years, and I walked to the front door to step outside and greet the day. It's funny how quickly a normal morning can turn into a nightmare. I opened the door, and at first I didn't understand what I was seeing. There was something massive blocking my view of the road, something gray and imposing, something that didn't belong there. I blinked, trying to make sense of it, trying to convince myself that I was still half asleep and my eyes were playing tricks on me. But they weren't. A concrete truck, an enormous concrete truck, the kind used for major construction projects, was parked directly across the only road that led to my property. It was positioned perfectly, deliberately, to block any vehicle from getting in or out. On one side of the road was a steep embankment. On the other was a dense forest. There was no way around it, no way through it. I was trapped. My first thought was that there had been some kind of accident. Maybe the truck had broken down. Maybe the driver had gotten lost. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding that could be cleared up with a simple conversation. But then I saw my son Michael step out from behind the truck. He was wearing a suit, an expensive suit, the kind he wore to his important business meetings. He had a smile on his face, but it wasn't the warm smile I remembered from his childhood. It was cold, calculating, triumphant. He walked toward me slowly, his footsteps echoing on the gravel, and when he reached the edge of my property, he stopped. He folded his arms across his chest, and in a voice that was calm but dripping with menace, he said the words that would change everything. "If you want to leave this house, Dad, you'll do exactly what I tell you." I stood there in my doorway, my coffee growing cold in my hand, and I felt the world shift beneath my feet. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. This was an attack. My own son, the child I had raised and loved and sacrificed for, had come to my home to hold me hostage. "What are you doing, Michael?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is this?" He laughed. Actually laughed, like this was all some kind of joke. "I'm giving you an incentive, Dad. You wouldn't listen to reason. You wouldn't take my offers. So now I'm giving you a choice. You either sign over this land to me, right here, right now, or you stay trapped in your house with no way out and no way to get help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was my son, the same boy I taught to tie his shoes, the same boy I comforted after his first heartbreak, the same boy I walked down the aisle at his wedding. How could he do this? How could he become this person? "You can't be serious," I said, shaking my head. "This is insane. This is illegal. You can't just block someone in their own home." "Oh, I can," he said, pulling a piece of paper from his jacket pocket. And I will. This is a contract, Dad. It's ready to go. All you have to do is sign it and I'll move the truck. Simple as that. I looked at the paper in his hand, and then I looked at his face, searching for some sign of the son I used to know. But there was nothing there. Just a stranger wearing my son's face. A stranger who had convinced himself that this was acceptable behavior. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice cracking with emotion. What happened to you? What happened to the boy I raised? His expression flickered for just a moment, and I thought I saw a crack in his armor. But then it was gone, replaced by that cold, calculating look again. The world has changed, Dad. People have to look out for themselves now. You had your chance to do this the easy way, but you wouldn't listen. So now we do it the hard way. I stood there in my doorway, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I was trapped, cut off from the world, with no phone signal out here and no neighbors close enough to hear me yell. Michael had planned this carefully. He'd thought of everything. You can't stay here forever, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. People will notice. Someone will come looking for me. He smiled again, and it was the most chilling thing I'd ever seen. I've got plenty of time, Dad. I've taken 2 weeks off from work. I've got food, water, everything I need right here. And nobody's coming to check on you. You've been so isolated since Mom died. Remember? You pushed everyone away. You wanted to be alone. Well, congratulations, Dad. You got what you wanted. The truth of his words hit me like a physical blow. He was right. I had isolated myself. I had retreated into my grief and my memories, pushing away friends and family who tried to help. I had made myself vulnerable, and my son had taken advantage of that vulnerability. I looked at the truck blocking my road, and for the first time I felt genuine fear. Not fear for my life exactly, but fear of what my son had become, fear of what he was capable of, fear that the son I loved had been replaced by a monster. But then, in the midst of that fear, something else started to grow, something I hadn't felt in a long time, a spark of defiance, an ember of resistance that refused to be extinguished. I'm not signing anything, I said, standing up straighter. You can sit out here for 2 weeks, a month, a year. I don't care. I'm not giving you this land. His smile faded. For the first time, I saw anger flash across his face. Real anger, the kind that made him clench his fists and tense his shoulders. You don't have a choice, old man. You're stuck. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. Eventually, you're going to run out of food. Eventually, you're going to realize that I have all the power here. And when that happens, you're going to sign that paper. It's only a matter of time. He turned and walked back toward the truck, and I watched him go, my heart pounding in my chest. He climbed into the driver's seat and sat there, watching me, waiting for me to break. I knew that's what he was doing. He was playing a waiting game. He was banking on my fear, my loneliness, my desperation to drive me to give in. What he didn't count on was how much this land meant to me. What he didn't realize was that I would rather die in that house than hand it over to someone who had treated me with such cruelty. But I also knew I couldn't just sit there and wait to be rescued. Michael was right about one thing. I had isolated myself. I had pushed people away. It might be days, maybe even weeks, before anyone came looking for me. By then, it might be too late. So I did the only thing I could do. I went back inside, closed the door, and started thinking. I thought about Margaret. I thought about all the times she told me I was too stubborn for my own good, that I never knew when to quit. I thought about how she'd roll her eyes and smile when I'd refused to give up on a project, insisting that I could fix it, could solve it, could find a way through any problem. She'd be proud of me now, I thought. She'd be telling me to hold strong, to fight back, to never give up. Because that's what we did. That's what we always did. We fought for each other, we fought for our family, and we never, ever gave up. Then, in the quiet of my living room, surrounded by the ghosts of my past, an idea started to form. It was crazy. It was risky. It might not even work. But it was the only plan I had. I went to my bedroom and opened the closet. Behind my clothes, hidden in a box I hadn't touched in years, was an old satellite phone. Margaret and I had bought it years ago when we used to go camping in remote areas. We'd used it maybe twice, but I'd never thrown it away. It was one of those things I'd kept because I couldn't bring myself to part with anything that held memories of her. I held the phone in my hands, praying it would still work, praying the battery hadn't died completely. I pressed the power button, and the screen flickered to life. I almost cried with relief, but the relief was short-lived. Who could I call? Who would believe me? I thought about my daughter Sarah, but she was hundreds of miles away. Even if she believed me, it would take her hours, maybe a full day, to get here. Michael would see her coming. He'd have time to come up with a story to make it look like I was the one being unreasonable. No, I needed someone closer. Someone who could get here fast. Someone who would believe me without question. Then I remembered Harry. Harry was my neighbor, technically, though he lived about a mile down the road. We weren't close, but we were friendly. He'd helped me fix my roof a few years back, and I'd helped him with his garden. He was a good man, straightforward and honest. He'd also been a police officer for 30 years before retiring. I punched in his number, my fingers trembling with nervous anticipation. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was starting to lose hope when I heard his gruff voice on the other end. "Hello, Harry, it's David. I need your help." "David? What's wrong? You sound terrible." "Harry, I need you to listen carefully. My son Michael has parked a concrete truck across my road. He's blocking me in. He's trying to force me to sign over my land to him. I'm trapped in my house, and he's sitting out there waiting for me to give in." There was a moment of silence on the other end. I could almost hear the gears turning in Harry's head, processing what I just said. "Are you serious, David? Your own son is holding you hostage." "I wish I was joking, Harry. I really do. But I need you to come here. I need you to see this for yourself. And I need you to bring your old police buddies with you. Michael isn't going to listen to reason. He's lost his mind, Harry. He's completely lost his mind." "I'll be there in 15 minutes, Harry said, his voice firm and resolute. "Just stay inside, keep the doors locked, and don't engage with him. I'll handle this." The line went dead, and I sat there in my room, the satellite phone clutched in my hands, and I started to cry. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief, tears of hope. Someone was coming. Someone believed me. I wasn't alone anymore. I looked out the window and saw Michael still sitting in the truck, watching my house. He looked so confident, so sure of himself. He had no idea what was coming his way. The next 30 minutes felt like an eternity. I paced around my house, checking the windows every few seconds, listening for any sound that might indicate someone was coming. I was terrified that Harry wouldn't make it, that Michael would get suspicious and do something drastic, that the whole plan would fall apart. But then I heard it. The distant sound of sirens, growing louder and closer. I looked out the window and saw Harry's truck approaching from the other direction, followed by 2 police cars. Harry had come through. He'd gotten his old buddies to help. I watched as the police cars pulled up behind Michael's concrete truck. Harry got out of his truck first, his face grim and determined. The police officers followed, their hands on their weapons, ready for anything. Michael must have seen them in his mirrors because he got out of the truck, his face a mask of confusion and anger. He raised his hands, palms out, trying to look innocent. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice dripping with false concern. "Is there a problem, officers?" I opened my front door and stepped outside. I wanted to see this. I needed to see this. One of the officers, a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense expression, walked up to Michael. "Sir, we received a report that you're blocking this road. Is that your truck?" Michael glanced at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, real fear, the kind that comes when you realize your carefully laid plans are falling apart. "It's my truck, yes, but there's no problem here. My father and I are just having a disagreement, a family matter. Nothing that requires police involvement." "That's not what we heard," the officer said. "We heard you're holding your father hostage in his home. We heard you're trying to force him to sign over his property. That's a serious crime, son. That's kidnapping, false imprisonment, extortion. You could be looking at some serious prison time." Michael's face went white. His hands started to shake. No, no, no. You don't understand. This is just a misunderstanding. My father is old. He's confused. He's grieving my mother. He's not thinking clearly. Your father seems pretty clear-headed to me, Harry said, stepping forward. He called me and told me exactly what was happening. I've known David for years. He's never been confused a day in his life. The officer looked at me, and I nodded. I'm David Jones, I said, my voice steady and strong. My son Michael has been trying to force me to sell my land to him for months. I've refused. So he blocked my road with that truck and told me I couldn't leave until I signed over my property. He's been holding me hostage since this morning. Michael started to laugh, but it was hollow and desperate. This is insane. This is absurd. Why would I hold my own father hostage? That's ridiculous. It's a family dispute, that's all. A disagreement about real estate. Nothing more. Then why did you block the road, son? The officer asked. If it's just a dispute, why the truck? Why the threats? Michael's composure cracked. I could see his hands trembling, his breathing becoming more rapid, his eyes darting around as if looking for an escape route. Because he's stubborn, Michael shouted. He won't listen to reason. I tried to be reasonable. I tried to negotiate, but he wouldn't budge. He's obsessed with this land. It's all he cares about. He doesn't care about me or my family or my future. He only cares about this stupid piece of dirt. I felt a pang of something in my chest. Anger, but also sadness. This was my son, after all. This was the boy I'd raised. Somewhere along the way, he'd gotten lost. He'd let greed and entitlement poison his heart. Michael, I said, stepping closer. This land isn't a piece of dirt to me. It's my home. It's your mother's home. It's where we raised you, where you grew up. Why would you want to destroy that? Why would you want to take that away from me? You're not leaving it to me, are you? He spat. I know you. I know you're planning to leave everything to Sarah. I've seen the way you look at her when she visits. She can do no wrong in your eyes. But me? I'm just the son who disappointed you. The one who didn't live up to your expectations. I was stunned into silence. Is that really what he believed? Did he really think I favored Sarah over him? I loved both of my children equally. I'd never shown any favoritism, never given either of them reason to think they were less loved than the other. Michael, that's not true. That's never been true. I love you. I've always loved you. I'm proud of everything you've accomplished. But I can't let you take this land. I can't let you destroy what your mother and I built together. Mom's dead, he screamed, and the words hung in the air like a physical blow. She's gone. She's never coming back. And you're living in the past. You're wasting your life clinging to memories that don't matter anymore. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Those memories matter to me, Michael. They're all I have left of your mother. And I will not let you take them away from me. Not today, not ever. The officer stepped between us. All right, that's enough. Michael Jones, you're under arrest for false imprisonment, unlawful restraint, and coercion. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Michael's face went white. No, no, you can't do this. This is my father. This is a family matter. You can't arrest me for a family matter. Actually, we can, the officer said, pulling out his handcuffs. False imprisonment is false imprisonment, whether the victim is family or not. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. I watched as my son was handcuffed and led to the police car. He didn't resist. He didn't say another word. He just looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes one last time, and then he was gone. The concrete truck was moved by a tow truck Harry called in. The police took Michael to the station for booking. I was left standing in my yard, surrounded by the quiet of the morning, trying to process everything that had just happened. Harry walked over to me and put his hand on my shoulder. You okay, David? I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I was okay or not. I will be. Thank you, Harry. If you hadn't come. Don't mention it, he said. That's what neighbors are for. Now, is there anything I can do for you? Get you something to eat? Make some calls? I shook my head. No, I think I just need some time alone. Time to process all of this. Harry nodded. He understood. All right, but you know where to find me if you need anything. And David, I hope things work out with your son. I really do. I watched him drive away, and then I was alone again. The road was clear. The truck was gone. But the damage had been done. The trust that had taken a lifetime to build had been shattered in a single morning. I walked back into my house and closed the door behind me. The silence was deafening. The memories that once brought me comfort now felt heavy and painful. I looked at the photos on my wall, the ones of Michael as a boy, laughing and playing and full of joy. Where had that boy gone? When had he become this person? I sat down in my favorite chair, the one Margaret used to call my throne, and I stared out the window at the land I loved so much. It was still beautiful, still peaceful, but it felt different now. It felt tainted by what had happened. In the days that followed, I learned the full extent of Michael's plans. He'd been struggling financially, saddled with debt and bad investments. He saw my land as his salvation, his ticket to financial freedom. He'd convinced himself that he was entitled to it, that I owed it to him, that I was being unfair by refusing to give it to him. The worst part was that he'd been planning this for months. The conversation about the developer, the offers to buy the land, the gradual isolation, it was all calculated. He'd been preparing for this moment for a long time. He'd even hired the concrete truck and its driver for the job. The driver, when questioned by police, admitted that Michael had told him it was a business arrangement, that I was an elderly man with a mental condition who needed to be convinced to sell his property. The driver had no idea he was participating in a crime. Michael's lawyer tried to argue that he was under extreme stress, that financial pressure had clouded his judgment. But the evidence was overwhelming. The contract he'd tried to force me to sign was clearly fraudulent. The threats he'd made were recorded on a security camera I'd installed years ago and forgotten about. His confession, delivered in a moment of anger, was all the proof the prosecution needed. In the end, Michael pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of coercion. He avoided the more serious charges of false imprisonment, but he still faced jail time. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation. The day of his sentencing, I was in the courtroom. I sat in the back, watching as my son was led away in handcuffs. I saw the look on his face when he realized the full weight of what he'd done. The regret, the shame, the pain. Despite everything, I still felt love for him. I still felt the connection between a father and his son. But I also felt something else. Anger, yes, but also relief. Relief that it was over. Relief that I could move forward. Relief that I had stood my ground and protected what was mine. After the sentencing, Michael was allowed to speak to me briefly. He was taken to a small room, and I was escorted in to see him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like the confidence he'd carried had been stripped away. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. I don't know how I could have done this to you. I just wanted it so badly, and I couldn't see past my own greed." I looked at my son, this stranger who wore my son's face, and I felt a lump in my throat. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Michael. Not right now. But I will always love you. You're my son. That will never change." He broke down then, sobbing like the little boy he used to be. I wanted to reach out, to comfort him, to tell him it would be all right. But I couldn't, not yet. The wounds were still too fresh. "I'll make it right," he said between sobs. "I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll work to earn your trust back. I'll be the son you deserve. I promise." I nodded. "I hope so, son. I really hope so." Then I walked away. The months that followed were difficult. I had to rebuild my life, learn to trust people again, learn to reach out instead of isolating myself. I started accepting invitations from friends and neighbors. I started talking to Sarah more often, sharing my feelings instead of bottling them up. I also started going to therapy. At first, I resisted the idea. I was old school. I believed in handling your own problems, not sharing them with a stranger. But my therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Chun, helped me understand that what I'd been through was traumatic and that it was okay to need help processing it. Through therapy, I started to see things more clearly. I realized that Michael's behavior was the result of a combination of factors: financial stress, his own insecurities, and a lifetime of feeling like he was competing with his sister for my approval. None of that excused what he'd done, but it helped me understand where it had come from. I also started to realize that I had contributed to the problem. My isolation, my refusal to ask for help, my tendency to retreat into my memories instead of engaging with the present. It had all made me vulnerable. I'd created the conditions that allowed Michael to think he could get away with what he'd done. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process, a painful process. But I was willing to do the work. For myself, for Margaret, for the son I still hope to get back. 2 years later, Michael was released from prison. I went to pick him up. I didn't have to. I could have let him find his own way home, but I wanted to show him that I was trying, that I was willing to give him a second chance. He looked different when he walked out of those prison gates, older, wiser. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet humility that I hadn't seen in years. "Dad, you came," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Of course I came," I said. "You're my son. You'll always be my son, no matter what." He hugged me and I hugged him back. It was awkward and emotional, but it felt right. It felt like the first step toward healing. The drive home was quiet at first. Neither of us knew what to say. But eventually, Michael started talking. He told me about his time in prison, the things he'd learned, the mistakes he'd made, the realizations he'd come to. "I was so focused on what I thought I deserved," he said, "that I forgot what was really important. I forgot about family. I forgot about love. I forgot about everything that really matters." I nodded, listening. "I made mistakes too, son. I isolated myself. I didn't reach out for help. I let my grief turn me into someone I didn't recognize." "We both made mistakes," he said, "but I think we can move forward. I think we can rebuild what we lost." I looked at my son, and for the first time in years I felt hope. Real hope, the kind that comes when you believe things can get better. "One step at a time," I said. "We'll take it one step at a time." He nodded. One step at a time. The land was still mine. I had protected it. I had held onto the memories of Margaret and the life we'd built together. But something had changed. The land wasn't just a sanctuary anymore. It was a reminder of the strength I'd found within myself, the resilience I'd discovered when I thought all hope was lost. Michael started coming over for Sunday dinners again. At first, it was awkward. There were long silences and forced conversations. But gradually, we started to find our rhythm again. We started to rebuild the relationship we'd lost. He got a job, a modest one, but a good one. He worked hard, determined to rebuild his life and earn back my trust. He started helping me around the property, fixing things that had fallen into disrepair, showing me that he could be the son I'd always hoped he would be. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments when old resentments surfaced and tempers flared. But we kept working at it. We kept talking, kept trying, kept believing that we could heal. Slowly, over time, we did. I still think about that morning sometimes. The morning my son parked a concrete truck across my road and tried to take everything from me. It's a painful memory, one that I'll never fully forget. But it's also a reminder of how far we've come, how much we've both changed, and how strong the bond between a father and son can be when we're willing to fight for it. Today, Michael and his family live in a house he built on a different piece of land, not mine, his own. He bought it with money he earned honestly, through hard work and dedication. He comes over with his wife and kids, and we sit on the porch and watch the sunset, just like Margaret and I used to do. Sometimes I think I can feel her presence, watching over us, smiling at the healing that's taken place. I think she would be proud, not just of me, but of Michael too, for finding his way back, for becoming the man I always knew he could be. The concrete truck is gone. The road is clear, but the scars remain. Some wounds never fully heal, and that's okay. They remind us of where we've been, what we've overcome, and who we've become in the process. I look at my son now, this man who was once so lost, and I see the boy I raised. I see the compassion, the kindness, the strength. I see someone who learned from his mistakes, who grew from his failures, who became a better person because of them. I realize that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most painful packages. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we need to learn the most. And sometimes a concrete truck blocking a road can be the beginning of a journey that leads us right back to where we belong. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Michael and I will ever be as close as we were before that morning. But I know that we're trying. I know that we're healing. And I know that's all that really matters in the end. So if you're out there and you're struggling with someone you love, someone who's hurt you in ways you never thought possible, I want you to remember this. Healing is possible. Second chances are real. And sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need our forgiveness the most. It won't be easy. It will take time, patience, and a whole lot of courage. But it's worth it. It's always worth it. Because at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to figure out this messy thing called life. We make mistakes. We hurt the people we love. We lose our way. But we can always find our way back, if we're willing to try. That's the lesson I learned when my son parked a concrete truck across the only road to my house and told me I needed his permission to leave. I learned that I had the strength to fight for what was mine. I learned that I had the courage to stand up for myself. And I learned that love, real love, can survive even the darkest of betrayals. The road is clear now. The truck is gone. And my heart, though still healing, is open to the possibility of a new beginning. A future where my son and I can be a family again. A future where the past doesn't define us. A future where love wins. That more than any piece of land, more than any memory, more than anything else, is what makes it all worthwhile.